You are listening to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast, the podcast for the rebel and the Renaissance man. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder, and as usual, joining me from the Great White North is John G. Goodman, and in studio is Donovan Fowler. How you guys doing?
Real swell.
Real swell?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm good. I'm doing good.
You doing good? You want a soda?
Yeah. That's all we need is Family Guy references.
I'm just wondering where the paper boy is.
That was next in my lineup. You and I are thinking like, John.
What are we now? Freshmen? All right. Let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping. I am drinking some Evan Williams because I'm also a cheapskate, in case you haven't known. What do you got there, John?
I'm sticking with my Stella this week again.
Oh, good. Man knows what he likes. And you, Donovan, you just got some.
I know
got some water. In there.
I know. Well, I left my flask at home, and I just decided it's dry here in LA, man.
You're right.
We've got winds.
You're doing the right thing.
Everywhere.
You're being the healthy person.
I may actually dip into your Evan Williams, maybe on the rocks, because it's also hot.
Yeah, it is. It is really hot. It is in an Art of Manliness mug, though, so that makes up for it. And I am smoking some Aristocrat from that little shop in Texas in my little nose warmer pipe, which you guys made fun of me for last time, but
yeah, it looks like a troll's
still
pipe.
funny looking.
well, you guys make fun of it. I was at Pipe Club 2 weeks ago, and a pipe maker said, "That's a very nice pipe. It's made out of really good Italian briar. That's really a good pipe."
Was this Donald Trump talking to you?
Maybe he has a crush on you, Jordan. Watch out.
That's a really nice pipe.
Yeah.
It looks like it's made out of briar. It's a great pipe.
It's a great pipe.
The best pipe.
It's the best pipe. It wasn't built in China. Right. And later on in the show, we actually have a licensed therapist, Eric Anderson, and he's going to answer some questions we have about therapy and just talk about some manly issues as it relates to mental health.
Licensed to kill and to diagnose your mental problems before he does it.
I'm a little scared, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, are you one of those people whenever you talk to someone that you know works in psychology, you think that they're like analyzing you the whole time?
I know they are. It's
Well, you know what Freud said about the Irish? He said that they're the only people impervious to psychoanalysis because they already live in a dream world.
Oh, well.
So I don't know if that was an insult or if he was saying the old country is beautiful in either way. It made us feel
was he
special.
Irish? No, he was.
No, he was.
Wasn't he
German?
Oh yeah, German.
German.
So what's going on in your week, John? I see you got a haircut. You kind of got the the Hardy Boys / Forrest Gump kind of look going on.
Neither of those sound like compliments.
And I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Which one's more well, at least Forrest Gump is a veteran.
Yeah. You got the high and tight going on, I think is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, high and tight.
It's very neat.
Yeah. It's nice for the coming cut. Summer months. It's a lot more comfortable.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So I guess the big news that I heard today, a alcohol company that produces gin accidentally released a bunch of bottles at 77 proof.
Really? You got to stock up on those,
everyone
right?
was kind of upset, but I thought, well, finally, some affordable gasoline.
Well, yeah, I mean, fuel's probably pretty expensive up there in Canada, like it is in California.
We're hovering around about, I think, $1.20 a liter, which if you do the conversion to gallons and the exchange rate, probably around 9 American a gallon.
Oh, holy crap.
No, it's not that much, but I'll work on the math. Come back to me later in the show.
By the way, fact checking myself, Freud was Austrian, not German.
Oh,
sorry.
Same thing.
Hey, don't tell the people in Sound of Music that.
Hey, sometimes a
Edelweiss.
cigar is just a cigar, Donovan.
Whatever, man.
Is a pipe ever just a pipe?
No. Point match. Touche.
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard of this series on Hulu, but I started watching it with my wife. It's called The Handmaid's Tale.
# We will bear no more.
We will bear no more. And it's interesting.
I've seen the posters.
It's dark. I'm not going to lie. It's dark.
It looks like one of those series where they've done a lot of good, it's a trending topic in the industry now, but like people are always talking about world building.
Yeah.
And I think if it looks like they got the tone and the world right and the casting, it's just, I don't know, those dystopian like future things.
Yeah.
Sometimes they miss the mark so much. I'll have to watch it. I don't know.
Well, it's well done, but there's some awkward things about, the surrogacy, pregnancy, and all that stuff. But of course, they always do the thing. Hollywood does a thing. Well, I know it's a book before, but it's like they've taken like this Christian fundamentalist kind of idea like that's taken over the world, which like in real life it'll never happen. Like it's just like it's only in Hollywood can that exist, and that's the only thing that bothers me about it.
That's always the thing. It's like Sarah Silverman said about like the thing where she said she makes fun of the Jews and Christians because she knows she can get away with it.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like the fundamentalist Christian thing just seems like it's been overdone. But there obviously there are crazy groups out there.
No, yeah, I know, and I could take a
majority.
joke. Like I laugh at stuff making fun of Christians all the time, and
it has to be funny. That's the thing.
It has to be funny.
Yeah, Handmaid's Tale. Why aren't you being funny?
Why aren't you funny about it? Let's get some humor in there.
And I mean, fun fact. Speaking of weird, crazy cults, I believe the Mad Men girl who's in it. She's like a lifelong Scientologist.
Yeah, which is weird. Does she get the irony in this?
But she's, I know, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure she's still in it. I know, it was a family thing for her. Like her parents were Scientologists, and now she's a Scientologist. But yeah, it is a little, who do you think is going to do it other than the Scientologists and the crazies?
Yeah.
Sorry to all our Scientologist listeners out there,
but it's definitely worth watching, because I'm always get a little bit conspiracy theorist about kind of a government having too much control and what that means and stuff. I think that they're off the mark in terms of what that would be in the future, but I don't think it's that far off in the future.
You know what the answer is? Freedom on the back of a bald eagle.
And back to Braveheart.
Whoa. We're going to have to do a mulligans on that. Second take, please.
I know.
Actually, I found
that's what happens when you're drinking every Williams in the afternoon.
I was bummed because we should have used this picture last episode, but I found a picture of Mel Gibson in full costume for that movie in his director's chair in Scotland doing a straight edge razor shave on himself. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's like he's sitting there and he's just like touching up like his top lip, but it's I guess he wanted to be somewhat authentic.
I wonder.
They didn't.
Well, when we have him on their show, we know what we can use as a promo.
They had Gillette back in the 13th century, right? I mean, come on, Mel, be historically.
Well, I even think like straight razors. Like the kind we know with like the, what do you call it? The, that have the scale on it and like the traditional barber ones, that's only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah. I've always wondered, like when you see like, some of these guys, like what did people use to shave their face back then? That's something
it was a stone.
Asked, Douglas and
when we have him on again in the future, we could ask him about it. Or else I'm actually going to be on his show tomorrow, so I'll ask him about it then.
I was talking about that'll be the extremist group of the old time shaving community, the people who just use a really sharp flint rock. It's like, so much better, man.
How more authentic can you get? All right, let's go over to some listener mail.
Listener mail.
All right, this is the part of the show where we read your feedback, and you could interact with us on social media. You could send us an email, or you can leave us a voicemail at man81scoff, and all those links are on our website if you want to get in touch with us.
We also accept entry by carrier pigeon.
Yes.
And telegram and train.
All of those ways will get to us. We'll talk about falling flat. All right. Let's go over to some iTunes reviews there, John. What does iTunes have to say about us?
All right. This one's from Farty Meldman Eyes again.
An old friend.
And it says, although I indulge in neither alcohol nor tobacco, this is an excellent podcast. I am a scofflaw in that I am lactose intolerant, but enjoy dairy products.
Living on the edge.
Yet I am also a gentleman. I couple my enjoyment with digestive enzymes to reduce flatulence.
That must be the name, the origin of their name, and the origin story.
P.S. This is not another review by a family member. Although if someone is looking to adopt, I'm open to discussion. Unless it's the Canadian, there's no way I'm making my way to the Great White North again. I'm sorry.
No. You have to say, I'm sorry.
He wrote it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We don't say that.
Yeah, you do.
John's been working on trying to get rid of it, I think, and so that's why he read it properly.
Yeah, eh?
You know, the first time I ever heard about that, like about Canadians like that are trying to be actors working in the entertainment industry, was Alicia Cuthbert, our old high school friend.
24.
She had to go through, or I don't know if I've heard that she had to go through training to get rid of her Canadian accent, and I still hear it in everything she's in.
Well, even I, like, in retrospect, it didn't, like, my roommate and I actually rewatched, I think, seasons 1 through 3 of 24, 2 through 3. And she features strongly in that, and in retrospect, I can definitely pick up on that.
Yeah,
but she is very, very attractive.
John,
I mean, when you're the daughter
Donovan.
of Jack Bauer.
Right there. What we got a little Instagram review there. What does Instagram say, Don?
The Instagram is, I'm going to try to read this name, but I'm going to butcher it. Soaringolan Sons.
That's soaring. It's Soaring Owl and Sons.
Sorry, I thought it was Gaelic. Soaring Owl and Sons. Why don't you spell soaring the right way? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Get out of my house.
Okay, here we go. Just listen to a very enjoyable.
About it. Sorry.
Just interrupting me left and right. No respect. Just listen to a very enjoyable and funny episode of the podcast, Gentlemen Scofflaws. If you haven't heard these guys, you should give them a listen. 2 words. Aromatic cherry. Hashtag aromatic cherry.
It keeps coming back, guys.
Included.
You're
you know
hashtagging, Dono.
It deserves to come back. It deserves to come
You're
back.
trending on Instagram.
And they included a little emoji of cherries, which I appreciate.
We're never going to live that down, I think. I think that's going to be on the dying episode.
It's gold, my friend.
It sounds like a T-shirt slogan.
And we got a message from Facebook here that says, I really enjoy the podcast. It's exactly the thing I've been looking for. I've been listening to The Art of Manliness, Joe Rogan, and Steven Crowder. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, who's that guy?
And many other podcasts for more education than chilling for years. But I always wanted something a bit more like this. You filled the hole, my friends. Looking forward to the episodes. Christopher Morgan. Well, thank you, Chris.
Glad we could fill a hole.
I knew you would go for the cheap laugh.
I mean, I was going to say, when I read chilling, I thought it was like talking more of like a suspense, like, you know, like suspense capacity. Like,
I read it as shilling, like he was talking about, you know, old English currency.
Oi, mate, you got a shilling for me?
Well, thank you, everybody, for those interactions, and we appreciate the feedback, and it keeps us going. So
it's great. It's always great reading these. They add.
It makes me want to come back next week.
Yeah. Well, maybe they don't want you next week. It seems like they're not fond of the Canadian.
We're still in the contract negotiations for you.
All right. Let's go to a break, and then when we come back, we'll be on with Eric Anderson, therapist extraordinaire. Everyone's an extraordinaire on this show. This part of the show is brought to you by Phoenix Shaving, makers of the most excellent aftershaves, shaving soaps, and all things traditional man. One of my favorite products of theirs are their aftershaves. Phoenix Shaving intentionally blurs the lines between traditional aftershave and classic cologne. Each batch of aftershave cologne is created by using traditional perfuming methods, giving the wearer a high dose of quality skin food matched by the staying power of berry white. Now, I tell you, this stuff is amazing. It'll make your skin feel great after a shave, and the alum and menthol just removes all irritation and razor bumps. They have classic barber scents and even more creative soap and aftershave fragrances. Like, my favorite is the Tombstone scent. It smells like leather, tobacco, and gunpowder. Pretty unique. So ditch those vials of chemicals you buy at the drugstore every month and grab some artisan soap and aftershaves from Phoenix Shaving. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/shave to help support the show and get some fantastic manly grooming products. Phoenix Shaving. Shaving outside the box. All right. I'm excited to have this next guest. And I know I say this every week, but this is a good friend of mine. Eric Anderson, therapist extraordinaire. That's the title I've given you. How you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Oh, definitely. No, I'm doing good. Glad I was able to connect with you guys and talk Scofflaw.
Yeah, talk Scofflaw and talk therapy, which, sometimes the Scofflaw in the man doesn't want to talk about his feelings. Sometimes
you need a little bit of a mediator between the gentleman and the Scofflaw inside yourself.
There you go.
There you go. Well, what tell our listeners, what kind of therapist are you and what's your area of expertise?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Primarily work with individuals, but I do some couples work as well. And my two specializations are, so I'm a certified sex addiction therapist. So I specialize in helping guys struggling with compulsive sexual behaviors, pornography addiction, that whole realm. And then helping their relationships bounce back from things like that. And then I'm also a trauma therapist. So I specialize, I use a type of therapy called EMDR, which is really helpful type of therapy. It gets people in their body, their feelings, helps them process things in a very specific and quick way. So people tend to like it and people tend to, get better. So
that's good.
Yeah. And when I say trauma, it's that, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. I kind of approach that as just any sort of underlying reason behind why you're feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling all whatever symptoms come up that you don't want to be feeling.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes me think of this big thing that's going around in the news this week. Speaking of trauma, I don't know if you saw this. There's these parents that make these prank videos on YouTube, and their kids just got taken away from them by social services.
The videos got taken down, and the kids got yanked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you watched any of these videos, but like at first I thought, like, in this kind of day and age, my antenna always goes up when I hear, these parents are being abusive or whatever. I'm like, well, what does that mean nowadays? Because now, like, anything is considered abuse. But you watch these videos and it's really abuse. It's like terrible.
I mean, I read the article you sent me, and I just compelled myself to find one of the videos to watch them, and I could barely make it through because it really is like, I mean, I think there's a term for it in psychology called gaslighting, where like you make somebody think that they've done something, or in this case it's for a prank, but like I don't know, it's stuff that interrogators do to get people to give up information. You don't really bounce back from that easily. Yeah. It's and the amount of cursing that's going on and stuff around those kids, like the F words being thrown around left and right. It's just like no. Terrible.
In your professional opinion, Eric, what are these kids going to need to go through after all of this?
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably need some trauma therapy sorting out all the times my parents would say all sorts of awful things and then broadcast my terror on the internet to millions of people. That's going to leave some scars.
Well, I think, too, the biggest problem with it is they're just bad pranks, too. I mean, forget the abuse around that. There's no payoff.
Yeah. Well,
okay. Yeah. Especially with kids and, playing pranks. And I did youth work for a while. I've done my share of, scaring middle schoolers at camp, that type of thing. But, usually by the end of it, we're coming out, we're laughing about it afterwards, and it's a bonding experience. But when the prank ends in tears and that's it, that's the problem.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of emotional toil involved in a lot of pranks. So
there's one thing in that video, and one video that I saw in this article, where I guess they told the kid he wasn't going to Disneyland for something that he did and it was a prank. But at one point, the camera's on the kid, and the mom or I forget, the dad, or I don't know if they're like married or if it's the actual dad. It's a stepdad.
It's the actual dad, and then I think the mom married him, and then the actual mom is in North Carolina.
Well, she's like, oh yeah, and so-and-so's going to Nana's and not going to Disneyland. And you could see when the I don't know if anybody's talking about this, but when she says that the kid, he's going to Nana's, I forget the name of the kid smiles for a fraction of a second, and then he goes back into like sulking. Like he thinks like it's almost like the idea of going to his grandma's is so much better than being around these turds than going to Disneyland. I don't know. It was just a little insight.
No, you might be picking up on something there, because that's it's not nothing. There's something happening.
Oh, that's crazy.
Who needs thrills when you live in a house like that?
Well, you mentioned that you that one of your expertise is sex edition. Sex edition. No,
Sex edition.
For people that want to add sex to their lives.
That comes afterwards. That's once they get hooked, and we add it.
Then you add it. So sex addiction, pornography addiction. And the thing is, like, when a lot of time this day and age, when somebody says, "Oh, so and so's a sex addict," and people just think, "Oh, you mean a guy?" What's the difference between a sex addict and like what like a healthy like male sex drive?
Regular, sex drive and horniness. It's addiction in general, whether we're talking about sex or substances or whatever, it's largely measured by its consequences, and it's escalation or tolerance buildup, things like that. So like with pornography, if someone's consuming that for a certain period of time, it's just kind of a regular thing. You can have whatever you think about it morally, value-wise, there's that. But if they're not able to continue or get the same high, or they got to look at it more and more hours a day, escalation in different types of intensity. And a big thing that's coming out now for a lot of young people is porn-induced erectile dysfunction, where a lot of young dudes in their 20s aren't able to perform in relationships, but they have no problem with porn when it's hours at a time. So, you see relationship consequences there. And certainly keeping secrets, things like that. There's, all sorts of issues that come into play. So the biggest thing is consequences and escalation, tolerance buildup.
Yeah.
Would you say, like, I always wondered, like, so, how they talk about how somebody may have a, kind of a different sex drive than somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking for a friend.
This is my friend. This is my friend who's asking this. No, but like, obviously people have different sex drives. Would you say, in your experience, do you find that people with kind of a larger sex drive, that they are more prone to sex addiction or porn addiction or something like that?
No, I'd say they're two pretty distinct things. Someone who has a high sex drive, that's very different than, keeping secrets in relationships. Someone who has a high sex drive can be perfectly healthy, can be open about that in their relationship. Maybe there's some issues to work out with their partner if, whatever struggles come up there in different levels of desire for sex. But that's when it comes to a level of addiction, if they become more prone to using sex or porn use or whatever it is in order to cope with feelings they don't want to have, in ways they might not be aware of, I'd say there could be overlap between the two. Someone with a high sex drive may think, oh, this is just a high sex drive, but there's really all these deep down awful feelings I have that I'm trying to not feel, and subconsciously I'm not even aware that I'm doing this to cope with that. But then, there's plenty of people with just want to have a lot of sex, and it's healthy, and they talk about it, and they can be congruent in their lives with that. We get a lot of training, and I'm big on not just pathologizing sex or sexuality. That's not what this type of work's about at all.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that this problem, I don't know if sex addiction has always been a major problem, but I feel like this day and age, with the access you have to any kind of pornography you can imagine on the internet at your fingertips, like literally at your fingertips now, on your cell phone if you wanted to. Like, I feel like technology plays a lot of a big role in that nowadays. Because, I mean, can you think of our grandfathers having like that same, I mean, sure, they'd have to go like, buy some nudie magazine in some little, den and behind the grocery store or whatever.
Or the creepy guy in a trench coat sneaking into the dirty movie theater, trying not to be noticed by anyone. I mean, that was the way it used to go back in the day. And your point about technology is great, and that's not just with electronics and internet and all that. I mean, that's huge, and that's exponentially building right now. But I mean, historically, addiction rates have always escalated as technology's advanced. I mean, even you go back to cars being invented and the wheel, and now we could get the booze from the city or from the country where all the moonshiners were to the city. Now there's more access to all sorts of things, and just rates of more people who might be prone to addiction had access to things, and now with your phones and technology, and you can any second of any day I need a 5-minute break, I'm going to sneak off and browse whatever I want to on my phone.
Yeah, and I remember when Apple came out with their ad for the iPhone. It was like back in 2008. They have like, it's a shot of the phone, and it's the fingers swiping through like a Safari browser. And it's like, it's not, kind of the internet. It's not a piece of the internet. It's the whole internet. And I was thinking like, I just remember thinking like this would be a perfect thing for Saturday Night Live at that line to just swipe to a page that's just fully blurred. Because it's just like like as soon as that was available on people's cell phones, that's what they were going to be used for.
Well, I mean, even when the internet first started in 1994, I was in second grade or something then, but I remember a big thing about like, don't go on chat rooms because people get in trouble on chat rooms. And even like, it just started. People didn't even know what to do with it, but people are already finding out ways to act out sexually with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was like a joke. I remember watching an old Seinfeld rerun where I think George is talking about getting a computer, and Jerry says like, what are you going to do with a computer? And then he's like, look for porn, and like, I mean, I mean, like, obviously our cell phones have become like an extension of ourselves at this point because they're so vital to our lifestyles. But when you start, I mean, I imagine when you start like integrating porn or any sort of unhealthy aspect into that, it's going to, really affect your life. I mean, and like you said, it's like, I had a history teacher who used to always say that no matter what happens in history, whether war or, economic crisis, 3 things will not be affected. And that's gambling, booze, and porn. and I think that's remained true that, those are, they're very, I guess you could say sort of primal things that are,
Well, I remember, I remember even learning in film school, like the first photographs and the first films and stuff like taken, like nakedness was always like one of the first things. Oh yeah, let's try and get some nude shots. That was the first thing. Even like people think of naked people.
Yeah, well, even like I think the origin of the word pornography goes back to like the Greeks, and it means like the drawing of the prostitutes or something. Which I just imagine a guy running off to a cave, like okay, let's act out these fantasies. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that people don't realize how long it's been around, and I think how easy it is to sort of integrate into human nature, even though it's something that you don't really want.
Now, do you think that people that have addiction to pornography are prone to other addictions, or do you find that it's a very specific thing? And I mean, how common is it? That's a good question. Is how common is it?
It's so I actually we're just learning today. It's kind of largely there's a guy named Rob Wise, and he's got a theory about how a lot of sexual addictions kind of split into two types. There's deep attachment wounds and traumas and things from the past, all those psychodynamic things that happen. And then, you find sexual ways to feel better, act out in all sorts of other ways. And that's a lot of, you get the whack-a-mole effect with addiction. One addiction gets addressed, another one pops up. But then there's another subtype, which is kind of this younger generation of people that are growing up with technology. Porn is a source of sex education, and it becomes just a way to disconnect. And I'd say that's becoming far and far more common as you're staying disconnected in normal relationships, and porn just becomes, an easy replacement because you have to be much less vulnerable. There's less stress with that. You don't have to deal with intimacy issues, uncomfortable feelings, vulnerabilities, all that. And so that's becoming that's becoming far more common.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, if you think of it too, like any other type of addiction, to keep up with it is very expensive.
Sure. Right.
Like porn is basically free. So it's like, I feel like that adds a whole nother layer to it where it's like, it's
right.
So, especially a young kid. What are you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say also, I mean, like, there seems to be kind of a stigma with other addictions, whereas like porn has become more and more mainstream. Like, I mean, you even have some movies that are like, I think like Don John, that Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie. It was sponsored by porn companies, which ironically was about a guy who was a porn addict, but kind of took a soft stance on like, what to do about it. But he got porn companies to sponsor it. And now like these are like, I mean, I hate to use the word household names, but like you'll hear, kids know what Pornhub is and like all that, stuff. I mean, it's definitely, it's got.
Wait, what's this? What's this called?
Do you want me to give?
I never heard of
address?
this.
But no, I think my point is that like, alcoholism, drug addiction, they all seem to be things that people dramatize.
Yeah.
But when it comes to porn or sex addiction, more so with porn, people are a little bit, there's shame that's involved in it, and there's also like people just don't take it seriously,
Well, I would
even though it's like
agree with
a chemical thing in the brain.
I would agree with you, but I would say where that's different is probably in the religious communities or the faith-based communities, where there's and that kind of brings us to another topic where people are afraid to talk about it if they have that addiction, and there's actually, I think that a lot of guys would find that they're not alone in speaking about that and coming forward with it.
There's a quote, I think, from maybe it's like James Dobson or something. He says like 90% of guys look at porn and 10% are lying or something like that. Like, I mean, basically it's a very, I mean, we are sexual creatures, as they say.
Well, it's when I mentioned that you were coming on, I got a private message from somebody that wanted to ask this question, and I'll read it to you on the air, and I think it funnels into what we're talking about. He says, I struggle with pornography on a daily basis. Just a very small thought or innuendo can send me flying into all sorts of disgusting videos on the internet. I'm also looking for a girlfriend, but I don't know if finding someone will help me more or give me more reason to quit or make things worse and possibly hurting the relationship. Should something like a relationship wait until this problem is fully taken care of? I want to get this issue out of the way because I want to settle down with a family, and it drains me of my energy and motivation. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely commend that whoever wrote that for just, I mean, the courage and the guts it takes to just put something out there, even if it's, anonymously. And the first thing I'd say is definitely keep reaching out for help and keep talking about that. It's far more common of, an issue and a thing, Donovan, like you were starting to say, than I think a lot of people realize. I mean, in response to the question, should I wait for a relationship until this is something that's taken care of? It's definitely the type of thing that, will get in the way, and, just your self-confidence and being able to be honest with someone. I think a good litmus test is if you feel like you have to keep a secret with your partner in a relationship around something like that, it's probably going to be leading towards some deeper problems. You can keep it a secret and then it comes out much farther down the road, and then it's a much bigger issue than it would be. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, something to take a look at and take care of. And, you kind of get a glimpse into that, it's on a daily basis, and the smallest thing can just kind of trigger me and send me into that. And a lot of people have sexual thoughts and things that, will pop in your head, and that's normal. But then there's,
when I was a teenager, all it took was a stiff breeze.
Yeah, right.
Emphasis on stiff.
That's all right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's a good innuendo to throw in there. But no, it's just the slightest thing just hijacks the rest of your day, and you're off to the races with that, and then you feel all the shame afterwards, and that's just a painful way to live. I feel for people that are stuck in that. That don't want to be in that, but I know that cycle all too well. So yeah, it's find the courage and talk about it, ask for help, and find you're not alone.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely, it kind of funnels into this next question is that, guys are stubborn, right? They don't even like to. They don't even like to ask for directions, or even look at the manual when building the IKEA couch, which I always have to do twice.
When you have your cell phone, when you have Google Maps and Pornhub on your cell phone.
Everything you need in the palm of your hand.
I don't want to throw that name around. I don't want to throw that name around too much to give them free advertising.
Oh yeah. So what would you say to men about getting help? Because there's almost this kind of stigma that men feel like, I should have my stuff together.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I totally relate to that. I hate asking for directions and trying to figure out how to do anything there. So, but I think that there's with the idea of manliness, it's so much being self-aware and knowing your own crap, knowing where your blind spots are, knowing what your insecurities are, and being able to own those and work through them. I think, some of the men in my life who I most admire, and I find most people I talk to, agree with me on this, they're the people who are vulnerable about these things. And yeah, I've struggled with porn, or I've struggled with alcoholism, whatever our issues are. I am super insecure in this place, and I know that, and I find I can trust those people far more than, someone who's just totally oblivious to, that's just those dirty guys who do all that, and they're not even aware of their behavior and, how that plays comes into play. So yeah, it's the more aware you can be, you're going to be better off in a relationship, and just you're going to feel better.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I feel like too, like just being able to, like we're doing right now, get together as guys and talk about things. Like I feel like that doesn't happen enough nowadays, and that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because it's like, either being at like a church men's group or a barber shop or a cigar lounge or something where guys are hanging around and talking and relating to each other.
I think it would help. Like it definitely would help masculine psychology. Like. Much more if you had a sense of community to rely on. And I think that's something that more and more, I living in LA is so much of a fragmented community already that, it's like you live in Glendale, I live in Hollywood, all that stuff. I got a friend across the country. It's like, it's harder to find a solid, group of guys that you can really, rely on for your emotional stress and things like that, And I think that is a big difference that we're starting to kind of find in our generational, as we go on, is that, the people either aren't looking for that or they have a hard time finding that, that kind of support network that they can rely on, so.
Yeah.
But I think people are starved for that too. I have a couple groups I do, and when people get in them, they're dying to talk about these things. You're deep in your soul. You don't want to be alone with whether it's an insecurity or an addiction or whatever it is. I think think at our core we were wired to connect, especially with just other men who know what these types of issues are like and who get it.
Yeah. So put down the video games and go to a barber shop.
There you go. Go get your haircut.
Get a haircut, you hippie. Well, I want to shift over to, I got a question here on another question online from Twitter from Justin Robinson. He wants to know, because we talk a lot about movies on this podcast, so he wants to know what movie depicts a therapist the most accurately.
The articulation.
The articulation.
Yeah,
it's hard hearing myself back.
That's a really fun question. It's also really hard to answer because there's so many different types of therapists and so many different theories and ways of doing things.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Robin Williams on Good Will Hunting, is very personable and very
relatable,
and then there's
what's the Sopranos,
the Freud movie, A Dangerous Method, with where it's very detached and psychosexual and all that stuff that that's back in the day, and
that's going back to the OG of Freud and Jung.
When Freud was doing coke and talking about sex with whoever he could,
and smoked a lot of cigars.
Oh yeah.
I just imagine anybody who would listen, he was just telling about that stuff. It was all therapy for him.
Right. But I mean, you still have psychoanalysts who do work based off of, his stuff. But I think my personal style and what I think is I've found to be the most effective is just the relationship type building. And I think the closest thing that comes to that in the films is, Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting, or I forget the guy in Ordinary People. It's relating, it's connecting, it's talking about the real issues and what's really going on, just relating on a human level, and working out your issues.
Yeah that was one movie that I always loved, and I was like, oh, this therapist seems cool, maybe I'll go to therapy.
Right.
Yeah. If Robin Williams
not
is
like
there,
the psych nurse Ratchet on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Well, you always that's always what I think is, I think of a guy sitting in the corner with a notepad analyzing your every thought, and it's like, that's intimidating, I wouldn't want to go to that.
I wouldn't want to go to that either.
Tell me about your mother. Do you ever ask that question, or is that just in movies?
Not like that, but yeah.
not that specific.
I mean, unless I want to be ironic.
All right. Well, I want to start a new segment on this show with Eric, and we're going to go to a new segment that we like to call, Is John a Sociopath?
is he? Yeah, I still don't know.
Yeah.
I think if you have to ask questions.
He's got those dead eyes.
We got this guy, John. He's told a lot of stories on this show, which may lead us to think that he might be a sociopath. I mean, how can we know? Can you psychoanalyze John and see if he's a sociopath?
Through the Skype call that we're doing, can I just look at your picture and see if he's sociopath? Well, he's smiling and laughing a lot, which that's usually a good sign that he's not. But I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's trying
glib.
to size everyone up and he wants to slit your throat when you're not thinking.
Sounds glib and self-absorbed.
Well, yeah, I feel like I've always worried that too, because I'm a guy, kind of guy that doesn't seem to like a lot of people a lot.
A sociopath?
And I'm like, maybe I'm a sociopath.
Or a psychopath. Maybe you're a psychopath.
Maybe.
I've done a lot of studying in this area. I've read books on it. Still can't distinguish what the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath is. Some people say they're interchangeable words. Some people say that it's, there's a difference. I don't know. But,
they're used interchangeably a lot.
They are, yeah.
There's psychopathy and hallucinations and that whole thing. That's different than someone who just is no feeling of empathy or connection for.
They used to call it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was.
They used to call it moral insanity. I think that was like the old-fashioned term for it. Which, if somebody doesn't have a moral compass, which I think is what no conscience.
Yeah.
Then
I prefer the term cray cray.
Hey, you guys cut out for a second there.
Oh, sorry. What?
Oh, John was just talking about how he preferred the term cray-cray over sociopath.
He's just a little cray-cray.
He's just a little cray-cray.
What? I mean, is there like a test to find out if somebody is, like some questions you would ask, or like how would you know?
I mean, there's certainly psychological assessments that, I'll refer someone to if I'm really concerned that, that might be the case. But I think what really defines a sociopath is just someone who's not capable of, empathy. And it's, what was it? I was watching, what was the show? Lie to Me, where they had an episode where there's a sociopath they were dealing with, and it was like, when he was very little, he let his little sister drown in the pool because I wanted her bike and she was just in the way. Like that, no sort of connection about like other people have feelings, and it's sad that my sister died. That doesn't register.
Cruelty to animals, I think, is a sign. Like it's funny because I mean there is like a trend in modern society, and I think that's why you see more and more characters in television especially that are a little bit more sociopathic in the way that they act. And it's because people mistake it as like a character, like it's a character flourish. Like that if somebody said like, oh, well, like I was going to let my sister drown because I wanted her bike, like they'd laugh it off and like don't really think about how horrible that is, and that maybe that they're serious. And that's I see a lot of like in the entertainment industry, which obviously we work in, it's like more and more they try to shoehorn these characters in, but they try to have their cake and eat it too, because they have to make them relatable. So then they give them human qualities of emotion and like you said, empathy and remorse, and it's
but by definition, if they're a sociopath, they don't have empathy, remorse. That's not going to they may fake it in order to get a reaction. Or to,
and they get boring really fast. Because you don't want you don't want to relate to somebody like that.
You think of like the new Sherlock Holmes, it's like they try and say he's a sociopath, but he kind of cares about his friends.
That was always one of my biggest beefs with the new Sherlock Holmes, is that he classifies himself as a sociopath, which I thought was just a cool way. Like they were like, oh, this will be cool if he just like says that. But the original Sherlock Holmes wasn't like that. He just accepted that he was a little bit emotionally cold, but he had moments of lapse where he would let reason sort of take, a side seat. Anyways.
Well, and I think a lot of the take on, the old Sherlock Holmes stuff was it was just a little bit on the autism spectrum, a little Aspergery, and I just don't connect with people and I don't really care to, and I'd rather just overanalyze everything, which it worked for him.
Do you think, like you mentioned Asperger's, and I feel like nowadays, like it's almost like ADD in the 90s. I feel like that thing, like having ADHD, like I don't know. In my opinion, it seemed like it was over-diagnosed to like just kids are kids and like they're medicating kids because they just they can't concentrate or whatever. But I feel like Asperger's is another thing like that. And recent, like every time I watch a TV show now, like a reality show or a contest, it's like, oh, that's the one with Asperger's. But I never heard of that. I never heard of that 10 years ago.
Or they're a sociopath.
No, and it gets really confusing because it's, Asperger's is characterized by, not really picking up on social cues, but, especially with technology and just being relationally disconnected, everyone's socially awkward a lot of times now. So like, it's easy to, lump someone into that category. They may just be really anxious about connecting with people or not know how to do that. And they just need some help, and they're capable of that. They're picking up on social cues. Social anxiety.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. It's like the joke about he's a sex addict. Oh, you mean a man? Well, I feel like, oh, he's got Asperger's. Oh, you mean a teenager? Like, what do you mean?
He doesn't know how to talk to girls. Yeah, it's because he's 13. Like,
it's because he's never met a woman.
I think we're dodging the issue here, which is John a sociopath?
Is John a sociopath?
We have to figure this out.
We have to figure this out.
I mean, he's Canadian, so maybe.
My last blood test came back clean.
Are there facial characteristics that help you?
There's actually the one book that I guess I could like. I mean, I'm not the therapist on this show, so maybe I'm overstepping my bounds. But
you can be though. I don't mind.
Donovan Fowler, therapist extraordinary. No, I would never take on that helm because I haven't earned it. But I did read a book once called I think it was called Without Conscience, and it was by Robert Hare, and it has a sociopath. But see, the thing about it is that I think the danger you always get into that is that people try to self-diagnose, or they try to diagnose other people, which, I mean, I think it's good to be aware of, maybe the mental capacities of other people. But sometimes you can just look at one thing they do and be like, oh, they're a sociopath. They forgot to pay me back. They're a sociopath,
Right.
So I think some people, like, one thing that happened to me after I read that book was it gave me a much bleaker view of humanity, because I was like, oh, this is depressing. Like, everybody's psycho.
That must be your whole world all day, every day.
Right. Sociopaths you got to learn to take care of yourself for sure. A big thing that comes in, it's definitely not sociopathic, but the other big buzzword that people are throwing around these days is narcissist. And I think that's a big thing that comes up more and more about just fascination with the self, and where I see it with relationships, it comes up huge with sex and pornography addiction, and how people interact in relationships is they can't connect to their partner's needs, or just someone that my behavior or my sexual acting out or just emotional reactions has an effect on someone else. It's almost like it's a shock to them when you're upset by something I might have done.
See, that's odd to me, because it does seem like, I mean, that seems like something maybe if you had grown up in an environment, and kids these days, it's like, especially with sex and porn, it's like it's they're conditioned to think it's not a big deal, that it's something normal. So it's different, because I mean, obviously I grew up in, like, a stable family, and I was always raised to know that those things were damaging to oneself if you abuse them. And I think that it's just so odd to me to think that somebody would have such disregard for other people. This sounds like a humble brag, like I'm like saying, oh, I'm such a good person, but no, that you wouldn't have. I guess it's kind of like a lack of self-awareness. I mean, is what you might add it up to.
As a kid, or as a teenager, when I heard the term Silicon Valley, I thought it was referring to the porn industry.
That's what I thought that too. Just dirty minds.
Well, you mentioned the show Lie to Me, right? And I don't want to ruin it. Do you watch the show, or?
I binge watched a couple seasons and then kind of fizzled out towards the end, but I saw a bunch of it.
Spoiler alert.
There's one thing that I noticed, and I hope I don't ruin the show for anyone who's a fan of it, but at the beginning,
for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. But I noticed that anytime that somebody thinks that the character or whatever on the show that they're analyzing is lying, they're always wrong, and the lead is like, no, I know he's telling the truth. But if anybody thinks they're telling the truth, he's always like, no, they're lying, and I know why. It's like, so you could predict the pattern of every episode.
Right.
It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Yeah. He's gonna what's his name? Tim Roth. He's gonna think the opposite.
And he's going to explain why you're an idiot for thinking that.
Human lie detector, man.
Yeah.
All you got to do is watch those pupils and the pulse, and you got it.
Well, if Eric, if anybody needs some help, where can they go? Where can they find you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, so my website's just ericandersoncounseling.com, Eric with a C. And you can email me at eric@ericandersoncounseling.com. And, if that's you're looking for a therapist, you're looking to do some work, whether about addiction or just, there's some underlying stuff, something you're struggling with, you're not really sure why, I'd be happy to help. Or even if it's just, to kind of point you in the right direction, bounce some questions off me, I'm happy to do that. I like to, just kind of get a healthy conversation going. And I like to consider myself someone just, safe and easy to talk to about these things, just to get the conversation started. So feel free.
Definitely.
He will not literally shrink her head.
He will not. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for coming on, and we'll have to have you on again in the future. And
definitely.
Thanks again.
Definitely, yeah, it was a ton of fun, and keep me posted.
Definitely.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Well, we're coming to the end of the show, and that was a great, informative interview with Eric. And maybe we should just have him on, like for an Ask a Therapist segment as part of the show every now and then. I think that'd be good.
He's young. He's hip.
He's hip.
He gets us.
He gets it. And thanks again for everybody who listens to the show and for the people that support us on Patreon. And if you want to support the show, no pressure. You don't have to. But if you want to, you say, I like this show. I could spare, $1 an episode. You can go to patreon.com/gentscofflaw. And there are a couple tiers that you can join in on and get some little extra perks every month related to the show. Some extra, movie review episodes. We did an episode at the Big Shave West. Maybe I might post like some pictures of me without my shirt on. So
very confident.
If that entices you, you can go there. Or if you just say you want to support the show, and you want to represent, you could go to our shop on our website, gentlemanScofflaw.com. And we've got some merch there, like some T-shirts and cups.
Oh, right.
Some stuff that fell off a truck. We're selling for various prices.
Yeah, but it was a nice truck.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, before we go, I did the math. We're at about $5.75 a gallon up here.
Oh gosh, wow.
Yeah, that's just
what are we now? I haven't looked in a few days.
We're at about I think it's hovering just above 250, usually 275.
So
280.
you're almost like twice as much as here, and here is like almost twice as much as Texas. Not twice as much, but much more than Texas.
California sucks.
Oh yeah,
Other than the weather.
Other than the weather, you pay for the weather in every other way possible.
Yeah, they'll tax that weather tax they apply to everything.
Yeah, and of course, everything we talk about on this show are linked in the show notes on our website. And actually, you know what we're doing next week? We're doing this week. When this episode goes up, we're doing a giveaway. Another giveaway with
How do I enter?
One of our sponsors, Phoenix Shaving. We're going to give away some Tombstone aftershave cologne, which is really
their
nice
stuff is great. I mean, honestly, like I've been using their deodorant this last week, and the flies have all left me, and the ladies are starting to walk a little closer to me. So I'm not repulsive anymore.
Well, there you go.
But
that's a solid endorsement.
Their aftershave is also quite.
I'm not
good.
repulsive anymore.
Phoenix, I'm not repulsive, but no, it's good products. I like
good stuff. So if you want to win one of those, go to our Instagram page, which is Gent Scofflaw, and there'll be the photo on there for the giveaway. And just read the description; it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to enter, and we'll mention the winner on the next show. So there's always a winner and 5 runner-ups, and we're giving away some swag with our stuff too, with the giveaway too. So go ahead and do that.
Do it or don't do it. It's a free country.
Or not.
But
Whatever.
Do it.
It might not be, according to Handmaid's Tale, in a few years.
When we're all going to be surrogates.
All right, guys. John, you are a gentleman in a scofflaw, my friend.
Thank you. So are you.
Donovan, you are a gentleman in a scofflaw, my friend.
And you are a scofflaw and a gentleman.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You guys have a great weekend.
This has been the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do. Hey!